If you're a small business owner, you'll know just what it's like to be the chief everything officer. HR, payroll, employee benefits. Well, Gusto can do all of that for you. Gusto is online payroll and benefits software built for small businesses. It's all in one, remote friendly, and incredibly easy to use. It's quick and simple to switch to Gusto. Just transfer your existing data to get up and running fast. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/lockedonsoccer and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's gusto.com/lockedonsoccer.
The world's biggest soccer tournament has arrived, and you can trade the entire tournament on Kalshi. On Kalshi, you can trade every match from the opening stage all the way to the final. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code CUP26 to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade the beautiful game. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory.
This episode is brought to you by Fox One. Watch all 104 matches of the FIFA World Cup live in 4K for just $19.99 a month with 3 days free. Build your own multi-view, choose up to 3 streams, and follow player spotlights. Stay on top of every moment with live stats, highlights, and instant replays. The FIFA World Cup, streaming live on Fox One. Offers are subject to change. See fox.com for complete terms and conditions.
3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome back to Tricky Talks podcast, where today we're doing another roundtable episode where we have special guests each bringing a forest topic to the table for us to discuss. Now, for our guests and our listeners, you're going to have to go easy on me today. This is my first time hosting the pod. And the only way I can describe it is that it feels like both the teachers are away. And by teachers, I mean Simon and Kate. And listeners, you've been left with the disruptive students of the class who just laugh continuously, me and Mollo. But with that said, I'd like to introduce our first guest, the wonderful Holly from the Forest Woman Fancast podcast. How are you doing, Holly?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome. It's lovely to have you on. And next, you may have already heard him on the pod before, and we've managed to prise him away from his running and content creating and award winning and all the other things that he has in stock. I'd like to welcome Des back. How are you, Des?
I'm good, thank you. Looking forward to chatting about Forest again whilst the World Cup's on. It's all gone quiet, hasn't it?
I know, yeah. Roll on Forest again. And always my laughing partner in crime, it's Mollo. How are you, Mollo?
I'm very good, thank you. And I look like a lobster because I had a day at Trent Bridge yesterday watching Stokes' last game.
And you've got a knee to match, haven't you, Mollo?
Knees are worse. The fried egg on my legs, I didn't even notice.
Right, so we've got 4 guests, 4 topics to discuss today. So, Holly, did you want to start with your topic for us to discuss for this pod?
Yeah, so a bit kind of off kilter in a way. Obviously, you guys talk mostly about the men, don't you? So, obviously, I host the Forest Women Fancast podcast, so it's only right that I talk about the women. My first question is: have you guys ever been to one of the women's games?
Yeah. I went to the record-breaking attendance one. Everyone went to against. Can't even say the name. Against that lot down the road.
Them lot. Yeah. Was that the one at home where we lost a couple of seasons ago? A few seasons ago.
It was a couple of years ago. I don't think we lost. Oh no, we did. Yeah, the record attendance one. They didn't turn up, did we?
Yeah. Yeah, it was terrible.
So I've not been back since. Losing to that lot down the road upset me so much.
Oh, no. We got to put that right, Molly. We got to put that right. What about you guys?
No, I haven't.
Yeah,
sorry, Des, you carry on.
No, I was going to say I've been a couple of times over the last couple of years. My friend is not the closest friend, but I've got a friend who's married to Lindsay Cunningham. You know, so my friend was Danny Arkin, Lindsay Arkin. I remember it from days gone by. So I happened to go along and bump into those a couple of times. I've watched a couple of games. I live at Trent Bridge as well, so it's a good opportunity on a Sunday afternoon for me to get over and watch it, you know, and I always enjoy it. Kay, my wife, her nephew's just getting into football, and they're trying to entice him in, and it's a good environment to bring him into as well. So we've watched some games over the last couple of years, and we went to a game last year. I think they played Stoke. I think they won 2-1. You might correct me, Ollie. And that was it was a good afternoon, and really enjoyed it. Not been to the women since they played at Forest in about, I can't remember what year it was. It must have been 25 years ago. England played and won 5-0 at Forest. And I remember going back then, and it really enjoyed it, you know, and of course it's something we all are starting to look out more for and get involved in. I know you're massive into it, but I think all of us can take something from it and when we can it.
Yeah, you know what? I'll just say I completely forgot where you live, but then I remember that I once, and you don't know whether you remember this, that I once had a pre-match wee house before QPR at home. Your lovely wife Kay let me in, and I was with Glenn Hancock, which I'm sure you all know. I don't know whether you remember that, Des, but that's a complete little.
I do remember because the house was a mess, and I was a bit like, "Oh my god, we're getting people in." It's a mess.
No, honestly.
But there you go.
But no, I think it's nice that point you made about it being the sort of nice, accessible kind of entry for kids and stuff. I think that's definitely a really good point, because obviously they play all their matches at the City Ground, which is great. So you get to watch football in a Premier League ground if you're not able to get tickets. Obviously, tickets for the men are quite difficult nowadays, as we all know. And for the adults, you can drink in the stands, so you can get a pint, watch the women, take it along, have a bit of a drink, which we did last year to slight excess on the day after my birthday. There was some good chance made up that after fun. But yeah, I think at the moment we're doing really well in terms of the progression that we've had. But I think we've found that, we were just talking to Bolo off air a minute ago, the difference between when we were very much a family orientated community sort of project, and now all of a sudden Marinakis has put all this money into us and we've become like this professional outfit, and the difference and the change between the two was so dramatic. I think a lot of people have struggled with that a little bit. Like with the women's game, you kind of find that people kind of fall in love with certain players, and you know, because you have that interaction, you can have that one-on-one with them, especially after the games and that kind of thing, which is lovely. But as you move up, it does start to change. But I still think there's so much excitement around the women's team, and there's an element. It kind of feels like football used to before, like all the inflated wages and VAR and all that kind of thing. Like, I'm quite a football traditionalist. I mean, I love the Premier League. I love Forest being in the Premier League. They're my team, and you know, I love them to pieces. But there's lots of elements of modern football that just really annoy me, and I think that's why I've kind of invested in the women. Is that it kind of feels a bit old school, and I really like that. You feel like you've got a closeness.
Right, we do seem to have lost Holly there, but hopefully she can come back, and then we'll get her talking about more of the women's football team when she comes back. But Des, did you want to go with your topic and we can discuss that?
Yeah, so what I was thinking about, obviously the World Cup's on at the moment, and all our attention's on that, and of course there's the ongoing Elliot Anderson ordeal, if that's what you can call it. We all know what's going to happen there, and I just thought, with that in mind, you know, I think that what realistically can Forest do next season, and I'm all look, I try to be as positive as I can about Forest, and I am in the main. You know, I like the process. I like watching the football closely and building my opinion. But I think sometimes there's a little bit of hysteria around Forest, and especially since we came back to the Premier League, some of the things Holly was perhaps talking about in the sense of the modern game, do you know? And I think it'd be easy to say now that we're going to, because Sunderland and Crystal Palace are in this competition, or because Aston Villa in this competition. We're going to go and get Champions League. But the reality is we've lost our most, if not our best player, we've lost our most valuable player.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the likelihood of what's going to happen. And I always look at it like this: when you lose a player, it's 10% of your outfield team. You know, and that's going to be massive for us. And we really know we've got to replace that. Whilst Morgan Gibbs-White is huge in everything we do, you know, he is the focal point. And I don't really want to say this, but I'd much rather lose Anderson than Gibbs-White. We still need that player in there. There were times when Danilo was brilliant at linking up with Gibbs-White and being that player, but he weren't consistent enough. We seem to have, and I know Molo's not a massive favourite, we seem to have Sangare at the bottom of the midfield pulling the strings, and I like that. But because of all that now, I'm starting to wonder what realistically we can do in the new season. Personally, I think first and foremost, we got to not be looking over our shoulder, you know, get a few wins in, you know, and start well, you know, solid, if not brilliant, and then see where it takes us like it did 2 seasons ago. And if we can get into that mid-table, then we can start looking again. I think last time, to use a pun of probably my own, we started to run before we could walk, you know, and we didn't see it through. And I'd hope this season, if we can make 1 or 2 solid signings, that we could really start looking up again, if not to the stars, at least to the sky, if you know what I mean. You know, start looking up mid-table, take those stepping stones again to get there, because I think last time it all came a bit too quick. So I just wanted to sort of get your guys' thought on it, on a realistic position for Forest to finish this season.
Yeah, I think I'm slightly traumatised from the season just gone, to be honest, because I don't think anybody expected to, you know, predict of what happened with 4 managers and then in a relegation battle. And yeah, you know, we've done all right in Europe, but still, you know, it wasn't the season that we all kind of hoped and prayed for, really. I think realistically, obviously not having Europe now, you'd like to think, you know, there's less pressure, not as many injuries, not so much fatigue, not as many games playing. Ideally, I'd like to sit as realistic thinking comfortably in mid-table. That's where I would like to be thinking. Molo's shaking his head. I know what he's striving for, but
No,
I
it's
don't know.
not that. Forest don't do mid-table easy seasons.
Molo,
There's always something to play for.
Okay, well, if we have got something to play for, then I'd definitely like to think that it would be more of a Europe battle rather than a relegation battle. But like you said, Des, with, you know, it was either going to be Anderson or Gibbs-White going, you know, in this transfer window. And obviously it is looking like it is definitely going to be Anderson to go. I didn't really look at it when you see it as like a percentage, obviously like 10% going, you know, and if your squad and it's weird to think in that way. So we obviously definitely need someone to, you know, be able to replace him in that midfield as someone stronger or 2, as Molo says. But yeah, I'd like to think, can you imagine a nice comfortable season of like finishing like mid-table, no dramas, no manager changes, all that? That'd be lovely, wouldn't it? But like Molo said, as Forest, and they don't seem to do that, do they?
And the maths as well. It's a funny thing. If you look at the table, 4 games from the end of the season, there's teams that you would have said, oh, they're mid-table, they've ended up in Europe. There's teams that you'd have said were mid-table have just finished above relegation. So I think it's a bit of a misnomer in our division. It's different in the leagues below, because you've got 24 teams. If you're sitting 10th midway through the season, you're chasing Europe, aren't you? But we had the exact debate, didn't we, that Des spoke about. Whilst we love them both, who would you be most worried about losing? And Des has nailed it with his language there. Without a doubt, as is now proven, Elliot Anderson is our most valuable player and arguably our best player. But Gibbs-White's our most important player. And I actually put Murillo not far behind him as well, to be fair, in what we do. But yeah, Morgan Gibbs-White staying is crucial. And I think everything depends on our signings. Everything depends on the route we go. I think if Morgan sees himself as that what we called the left 10 or whatever you want to call it, which seemed to bring out the best in him, and he's happy to play on that left-hand side. Well, he doesn't play on the left-hand side, but from the left-hand side. I think that's massive for us because he just seems to affect the play constantly, even more than he did before, and score more goals, obviously. But for me, it's not about looking for a like for like replacement. And she's going to sound like scapegoating, but 2 years ago we finished 7th. Okay, and we should have finished higher, arguably. You look at who was in midfield for the most of that season. It was an Anderson that me and Des wrote an article on for something at the end of last season. I read that article the other day, and I actually wrote in the article, this lad will play for England as soon as once he improves his shooting and his assists and blah, 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 because he had 7 shots on target last season out of 40. I don't know what it is this season. And he's done all that, especially at the end of the season. But alongside him, he had, for most of that season, was Yates or Dominguez, and we finished 7th. Last season, he was even better in the place that wins and loses games. His stats show he was even better. So why did we lose more games? And I'm not putting the blame in one person's ballpark or anything like that. But my issue is, I'm trying to think of a nice way of saying it. Just like Simon carries us on this pod, I feel like the work that Elliot Anderson did and the stats he puts out, of course you can argue, there's another stat that doesn't get talked about often. He won the ball back all those times, but 10 or 15 of them it's because he lost it. But that's just the way it is. But imagine if we had another midfielder just banging out stats every game that was standard alongside him. Where could we have been? So next season, for me, it's a massive rebuild in the engine room, which is the crucial part. I watched, ironically, and I'm going to say it, I watched it the other night, Ivory Coast, and I saw everything in one game about Ibrahim Sangare. I saw some great first touch passing. I saw a lovely pass forward for the assist, one of 2 or 3 forward passes he did. But I also saw him spend half the game marking the ref. But he's got so much talent. If you're being brutal, we've got a guy who we've seen strike the ball at goal half a dozen times since we signed him with venom and power and sometimes real accuracy, who rarely shoots. A guy who can ping a pass like he did the other night. But then, watching England play and watching 50% of Elliot Anderson playing, do you know what I mean? Where they took the brakes off Elliot Anderson and all these people watching said, he's a decent player, but he's not worth that. They're only seeing half of Elliot Anderson, aren't they? Because he's not doing those other things. But it worries me because there's two simple parts to football, with the ball and without. And with the ball, Sangare's pretty decent. Without the ball, he worries me. And I just feel without that physicality that Anderson massively has and has shown, are we going to lose lots more midfield battles? Because when Anderson wasn't 100%, and he actually didn't play that badly away at Everton, but we got overrun, didn't we, by their midfield. Then at home, we had it's just, Brighton was the other one I was trying to think of, where we got overrun in midfield. It's going to happen sometimes in the Premier League. Of course it is. But for me, I think I've basically said it, haven't I? I'm worried because we can't go like for like. The players we're talking about that have been linked with Bergval's a good young player, but they're talking silly money. Curtis Jones is a steady Eddie, but he's 26 next season. He doesn't really fit our young profile, but he's a steady player. I mean, I'm not quite sure I got England caps, but he did, maybe because he played for Liverpool. But if you put them into midfield together, then who knows? But if one of them's to replace Anderson and we go as we did last season, it could be a tough season because that's where games are won and lost generally, isn't it?
Yeah.
I agree to some... Sorry.
No,
I just wanted to say, I agree to some degree with the Sangare thing. And when he first came, I was his biggest critic.
But
people
that's the thing, though,
telling
Des.
me how much I was his biggest critic.
Yeah, but that's the thing, Des,
I agree.
Comparing to what he was like in those first 2 seasons when obviously he was injured or ill or whatever, but he was terrible. He's just better than terrible.
Yeah, but I think Molo, over the last season, why have Anderson's stats improved massively? I think sometimes it is when Sangare is on the pitch. I think he helps him. He is a much more confident player. Do you know, he moves that ball quicker. I think especially when Sean Dyche came in, Sean Dyche obviously wanted the ball moving forward more quickly up the pitch. And I think the main benefactor of that was Sangare. He was the one getting the ball out to the wingers first time, into Anderson, into Morgan Gibbs-White. And I've been saying that for 2 or 3 years. What we needed to do is get the ball forward much more quickly. I think Sangare is a solid option in there. I think if we replace Anderson, obviously it's not going to be like for like. You're talking a British record fee. We're not going to get the same kind of player. And I think what you might see is a couple of players signed, one with a more defensive mind, and maybe a Curtis Jones or someone like that. So at times, because there's been this thing, hasn't since Nuno left, about that Marinakis wants us to be a bit more progressive in our play. He wants us to be moving the ball forward a bit more quickly. And I think what you might find when Anderson goes is at times you might find 2 number 10s. You alluded to it yourself with the left-sided number 10 is Gibbs-White. I think at times you might see Jesus play a lot more off Chris Wood. We've seen the success at the end of the season when that happened, when Wood was Jesus was playing off Wood almost as another number 10. We started getting results. I think you might see that deployed at times, but of course we have to replace Anderson. But I think the way Sangare's come on, and he's not perfect, especially out of possession. That's what worries me. He becomes a bit of a headless chicken. But in possession, if we're going to be that more possession-based football side, we know at the back that the players are good enough to cope with anything in the Premier League. I think we've got as good a defence as most, despite a position last year and despite my own bias. The 2 at the back, which I've got on my T-shirt, are as good as anything. And I think if we can start controlling possession and we can get Sangare on the ball, we might... I don't want to say this because you're always going to need Anderson as the player he is, because he's absolutely brilliant. I do worry what it's going to take away from a team, but we might then just evolve a little bit more as a team, become a bit more progressive going forward with the right players filling his spot. And I'd like to think that'd be the case. And that's where I think Forest, going back to my original question of realistically, what can we do? Look, nobody settles for mid-table. We all say we want a season of being Crystal Palace. Nobody wants to be Crystal Palace, apart from the last 2 seasons, maybe. But nobody really wants to be Crystal Palace.
Except Crystal Palace.
It's that sort of...
The world's biggest soccer tournament has arrived, and you can trade the entire tournament on Kalshi. On Kalshi, you can trade every match from the opening stage all the way to the final. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code CUP26 to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade the beautiful game. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory.
If your business runs on 5 different apps, 12 browser tabs, and 1 spreadsheet that everyone's afraid to touch, it's probably time for Odoo. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that connects every part of your business into one powerful, easy-to-use platform. So instead of wasting time switching between disconnected systems, your entire business works together in real time. Your team moves faster, your data stays accurate, and you can actually focus on growing your business. Let one unified system run your entire business. From the first opportunity to the final payment, everything works together in one place. Whether you're a small business or managing a large operation, Odoo gives you one flexible platform built to grow with you. Learn more at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at Accenture.com/Spotify.
it's that boredom at the end of the season, and everybody starts breaching one way or the other or switches off. But I think if we could get ourselves into that mid-table, look what Sunderland did. When we played them, they were starting to struggle and fall away. And all of a sudden, they went on about 3 or 4 game run because they were safe. And what we have to do this year, whatever we do in terms of signings and things like that, we have to start solid, build into it, realise where we are, not reach for the stars, and then when it comes to a point, maybe in January, February, March, is go, right, we've got an opportunity here. These teams like Palace, like Sunderland, like Brighton, they're playing in Europe. We had all those struggles last season. Our 1 or 2 injuries. I think in the Premier League these days, the big thing is every team has got a good first 11. Nobody's really got a brilliant squad apart from the big boys at the top. You take 1 or 2 players out and they start struggling. And I think if we can just replace Anderson with 2 or 3, because when one of Gibbs White, Sangare, or Anderson was out, we really, really dropped off. And there's other positions, wingers maybe, we need another winger and that kind of thing, which we might talk about. But once we lost that key player, Callum Hudson-Odoi is a great example, we dropped off massively. And that's where recruitment, we've done brilliantly well in the last couple of years of selling players for good value. We've probably got over the odds on Brennan Johnson. As much as I love him, it's probably not a £50 million Premier League player. But where we haven't really nailed it, apart from Anderson, was the signings. And if we can replace him, with 2, I think, good solid signings, all different kind of midfielders, I think we can really push up the table.
Yeah, Holly, what do you think? What are the realistic expectations for you for next season? Oh, Holly, you're on mute, lovely.
Sorry about that. That was me. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to annoy you, Mola, here by saying
No, it's not. It's a cult. It's a cult. No one's allowed to criticise Sangare. I know. I get shot down for it all the time.
No, do you know what? I do want a boring mid-table. Well, I don't want it to be boring, but I don't want to be a laughing stock. I mean, let's face it. We completely overachieved 2 seasons ago, didn't we? We didn't think in our fourth season we achieved Europe. None of us would ever have expected that. And then what happened last year was just absolutely mental, or totally Forest, wasn't it? So I want an un-Forest season. I want a good start. I want to start it well. I think we can. We like beating Leeds at home. Obviously, Liverpool just changed their manager, even though it's Areola. I know he's a decent pedigree. Tottenham still going to be recovering, I think. And then we want revenge on Villa, don't we? Come on. I'm still heartbroken over so let's get our result, revenge at Villa Park. Yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, yeah, like Des said, just a clean, solid, comfortable start. Start as we mean to go on. The fact that Murillo's signed a new contract, if we can keep Gibbs White, which I think looking likely. Chris Wood coming back fully fit for a season. Massively missed him last year. Massively missed him. I'm optimistic. I just want the season with no jeopardy, lots of stuff, and not to be a stop. I don't want us to be in that anywhere near that relegation conversation. Nowhere near, and we shouldn't. That's not arrogant big Forest. There's no reason for us to. I think we've got a lot to learn in terms of our a lot better this year. Our second spring wasn't enough for it, but we've got less games this season. We're out of Europe, we have less games, fully focused on the league. Let's have a boring one and build from there. I'd be happy with that.
I'd be happy with it. It's just not the Forest way, is it?
Yeah. I'd be happy with it too, to be fair.
I think what you saw when Aston Villa, someone made this point to me earlier actually, when Aston Villa sold Jack Grealish to Manchester City, however it worked for Jack Grealish, which was indifferent obviously, it made Villa what they are today. It actually made Villa. They lost their prize asset, who was the linchpin of their team, and obviously a boy who sort of fan. But when they lost him, they was able to reinvest. This is the nature of the Premier League now. And I think Forest I think they will. I think this is probably what they're looking at season on season. But they'll probably look at Villa and go, we've got an opportunity now to make our squad a bit more rounded. When it comes to cup competitions and not Europe now, but maybe in the future, we'll have a lot more options to call upon it rather than these 11, what I spoke about before. And that's how teams ultimately succeed, isn't it? By having a really strong squad. So when adversity kicks in, they've got the opportunity to go again. And I think this is an opportunity for Forest to look at that and think, do you know what? This could actually be a blessing in disguise. Nobody wants to lose Anderson, but if we get 2, 3, 4 good players on the back of it, it could make our squad a lot better, and we could really then, and like Ollie says, solidify is the key thing. Solidify in the Premier League, because even though we had that 7th, even though we had a European semi-final, it doesn't feel like we're secure in the Premier League. It doesn't feel like we're seasoned competitors even like a Bournemouth and a Brighton, and we should be starting to get there now with the owner's ambition and with the transfer fees generated. We should be aiming for that. So, yeah, I think solidifying and then see where we go from there.
And like we can all agree on, we just don't want a relegation battle. That'd be absolutely lovely. But so Mollo, have you got a topic for us?
My topic, it ties in with what we've said, because we keep talking about who could be a good new signing. I'm going to reverse 12 months and say, what are our expectations going forward now for the signings we signed last summer? Because we spent, for us, a lot of money, but the really established clubs, they buy players for 25, 30 million. They don't really play much for a year, whereas we as Forest fans are quite demanding that they drop into the team and make us 1,000,000% better kind of thing. And I wrote a list of the main signings, and not the young lads, and I'm not including Nets in this. He was obviously a January signing. I put them in a kind of an order, and not value for money, but what I'm expecting next season, because there's no doubt in the first half of last season, the likes of Bakwa, to a lesser extent Hutchinson, he came good early, still McAtee and Doy after the first few games. People were saying, what have we spent the money? You got the crowd, some element saying, send them back, sell them, whatever, Callum Wendo's an interesting one, because he looked like he'd come from the Sunday leagues or something. He couldn't hold a ball up, he couldn't run in behind. Scored a couple of goals, one of which, the goal's a goal, but was ridiculously lucky away in Utrecht, but thank goodness he did. Savona was an interesting one, because he had a tough, big boots to fill, and he did okay. He had a couple of games where he man-marked very good wingers. But I'm thinking more, now they've got the season under the belt, in the later part of last season, and this is significant, particularly away from home, we saw what Bakwa could do. What our expectations are next season, and I keep banging on about it, whatever people think of McAtee and his contribution in games generally, he's got possibly the best first touch, arguably, at the club. If that's your starting point, you've got a pretty good place where you could be, isn't it, in football? Of course, there's more to it. So, over to you guys. What you got? Jesus, who obviously like more goals from, but I think Des touched it on earlier. He looks a very, very good number 10. Bakwa, who I think's got a higher ceiling than any of our other wingers, to be honest, albeit we've got to get him there. And his physique, if he gets used to English football. Hutchinson, we know what he's capable of and what he can do, but he desperately needs to work on his end product. But then there's that half an hour at Sunderland away where he was absolutely devastating. And then you come to the others, which are your McAtees and your Ndoys, Callum Wendo and Savona. Over to you.
I think with Hutchinson, obviously, like I've said many times on the pod before, I was his biggest critic when he came to Forest.
So to qualify, the question is, what do you think we'll get from them next season? Not what happened last season. Just in case it wasn't clear, sorry.
Yeah, I think with Hutchinson, I'd like to see consistency from him this season. I think, like you said, Molo, it has been a bit like he had like a phenomenal game, and then it was a bit of a lackluster one the next one, and then it was almost like you said that was the Sunderland game, wasn't it, where he just came out and just performed really. It just all seemed like too inconsistent for me, and we know what he's capable of, and I would just like that to continue. Obviously, he didn't start off in the Europa squad, but then eventually ended up going in, performed very well. So yeah, consistency with him and just being able to just perform at the best that he can and what we know that we can see him play. McAtee, see, for me, I don't feel like we've given McAtee enough chance and enough minutes on the pitch, and I think we've got a lot more to see from him, and I would like that to happen.
What's
season.
His best position, Chelsea?
I don't know.
Nobody knows.
That's the thing. You couldn't, think, oh yeah, I'll put him, more short. Yeah, no, I would have no idea how I'd play him. And I think again, that's going to be, up to Pereira to see kind of where he fits. Obviously, what other signings we then, where we're able to make in midfield and stuff. So obviously, that'll be down to him. But yeah, to me, it depends on other signings as well to see how they all kind of progress.
My point is, the reason I asked that question, I think there's some players in there, and Des talked a bit about the squad, that will make a big contribution next season. Like the opposite of second season syndrome, if you like, because they've settled into the area, they've settled into the team, settled into a new league in a lot of cases. And I just think there's some real talent amongst that lot. But what do you reckon, Des? I mean, because they're all fringe players, barring Jesus, really, weren't they, last season, a lot of the time? I feel like...
Yeah, look, I've been critical of it myself. I have. We didn't... When you spend the kind of money you spend on those players, and I know what you say, that other teams spend a lot of money and a lot of transfers fail or don't quite work out. When Forest is spending that money...
Yeah, or they gently introduce them...
When Forest is spending that kind of money, yeah... When we're spending that kind of money, we need some kind of instant return. You need those players to hit the ground running. It didn't help with all the chaos in the summer, with Nuno. They obviously his players, and that was the start of those players. They must have been looking around at each other in August and September thinking, what have we come to? What the hell have we found ourselves in? And I got that feeling with McAtee. He almost looked dumbstruck, and then as time goes on, and then the managers change and it gets worse, and they're not on the side of Sean Dyche, and it gets even worse.
So to bring it to you, Des, what are your expectations of them next season? What do you see happening next season?
What I'm getting to, Molo, is the point is, they had every opportunity to perform. As a footballer, as a £35 million player, you've still got to do the business, despite all those things. You might have come into a bit of a... I was going to use a word I don't want to use there. A bad show, You might have come into that environment. You might have then come into a change of formation with Postecoglou, and then Sean Dyche being a bit more defensive and whatever. But you still got to do what you do. When Vitor come in, he got something from them. You started to see a little bit from some of them. So yeah. Hutchinson, I expect him to go on and become a better player with consistency under the leadership of Vitor Pereira, with a lot more games. Because all that's missing really from Hutchinson's game is that he needs to eradicate that naivety. He cost us goals at times by giving the ball away in crucial positions. I remember West Ham, he gave away a corner and then they scored from it. And people think, well, that's going a long way back, but that's how it is in the Premier League. If he stops that kind of stuff and does his business at the other end of the pitch, you've got a hell of a player in there, a lot of teams. So I'd expect him to go on and be a better player. From some of the others, I'm afraid, I didn't see enough. McAtee, I didn't see enough. So there was a lot of talk when Sean Dyche was the manager about running, running and running and running. And it's my favourite subject. But, but McAtee didn't work hard enough. He didn't run hard enough. He didn't start with the basics. Do you know, all I ever ask of him when he come on a football pitch, first touch, pass to your teammate. Don't try and do a flick and roll it back out of play and then your shoulders go down. Right? All he had to do was play it back to his fullback or play it to Anderson. Do you know, and then your confidence builds. You made one solid first touch. Do you know, then you build from that. And I didn't see enough of that. He will never play at Forest with the quality of players he played at Manchester City. And Manchester City deemed him not good enough. And I think to some degree, we're not going to get much more from him because I don't see lightning pace. I don't see him sort of rolling his sleeves up and getting stuck in. I don't see enough of these tricks coming off to make him the most skillful player at the club. You know, we've got that player in Gibbs White, so I don't see much coming that way. And then you thought, I'm not even going to get going with Callum Moreno. You know, he was a bad buy. And I'm not going to argue with anyone. He was a bad buy. You know, and then you've got Dan Undoy, who again, at times you think there's something there, but you've seen in this World Cup, you know, you're just thinking, one, stay on side,
Yeah.
two, score a goal. Just score the goals you're supposed to score. You know, and
he lulled us in, didn't he? He lulled us in those first two games.
Yeah. But Neville said, and look, I don't want to agree with Gary Neville on anything, but Neville said in those first couple of games about him and one or two of the others for Switzerland, they're not elite players. They're really not elite players. They shouldn't be commanded £40 million fees. So all I see with those, if you can get something back, you know, get something. Because I'd like to think they were coachable. Do you know when Tyro come into Forest, he was a mess. He was an absolute mess. He couldn't trap a ball. He didn't know where to run. He didn't know what to do. Steve Cooper had a season with him, you know, and you could see him running in the right place because Steve Cooper was a proper manager. Whatever anyone thinks about how it's worked, he needed coaching, Tyro. That's what he needed. He had the physical presence. You know, he's got the strength. He's got that sort of goal-scoring touch. But he needed coaching. And that's where I am with Hutchinson. All he needs is coaching. The other guys, I'm not sure they've got that. I'm not sure it's just about coaching. I think they just... There's perhaps a little bit of commitment and desire not there because of the big move and what they've done previously. I don't want to bring that into it at this stage because it's a new season, it's a fresh start and all these things. But I didn't see enough. Whereas, again, if you was able to coach these players into what Tyro become, into what I believe Hutchinson can become, you know, I think there would be something there. Backward again, you know, when he did stuff without thinking, brilliant. You know, a couple of games, the Chelsea game in particular, when he was unplayable for 15 minutes because all he did every time he got the ball was put it in first time. You know, that's his game, obviously. He was too quick for Cucurella. He's actually gone to Real Madrid, bizarrely, but there you go.
Yeah, see, what you're saying, Des, can I summarise that then? So what you're saying is there's a couple that you think are good enough, some that you don't think ever will be after one season where they've been in and out of the team. I'm not going to dig at you here. I think it's a because of the foreign support, isn't it? And you're nailing your colours to the mast before we go to Holly on this. That the guy who ripped apart the now Real Madrid and Spanish first choice fullback is not good enough for Nottingham Forest. Right, Holly, where do you stand on these players for next? Because apart from Jesus and Hutchinson, you're effectively saying that what they've done now, Des, if we can get anything for them, they should all go. I get that you've got to have wheeling and dealing anyway. But let's see. Holly's thoughts?
Choice Hotels get you more of what you value. Comfort Inn, it's calling your name. Save on the stay. Oh, and free waffles are yours to claim. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
Need a laptop that's built to perform and designed to last all day? Select Windows 11 PCs starting at $499.99 are now at Best Buy. Learn more at bestbuy.com. Best Buy. Imagine that.
Welcome to a new era of baseball's great spectacle. The T-Mobile Home Run Derby, live on Netflix. The biggest sluggers in baseball put their talents to the test on All-Star Weekend. Raw power meets star power. Big swagger meets bigger slams. And you don't swing to make contact. You swing to make history. Watch the T-Mobile Home Run Derby live on Netflix, Monday, July 13th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific.
Well, I think with McAtee, he was on hard into nothing, really, wasn't he? He was brought in as a kind of a backup to Gibbs White, and he never got in the team. And I think for that reason, we might as well tell we've got Gibbs White starting less injured, obviously. And I don't think he showed enough to really definitely. You just sense that he's probably not happy. But then, going back to the point you made, Des, about so many managers last season that they probably didn't know grass from their elbow, did they? This absolute clown show that I've signed for. Like, what is this? And I think a player like Amari, pure talent, it's there. It's innate in him. You can see it. But for one, I think he's definitely a confidence player. When he's confident, that's when he can express himself and he can play his best ball. And I also think he needs to be a lot more decisive, working with them. And thirdly, he does need to beef up a bit, doesn't he? He just gets pushed off the ball far too easily. But I think there's a real player there. I think there's a lot of potential. And I'm looking forward to seeing him being coached under the same manager for a season, like most of these players. Just build and just kind of get repetition and continuity through that whole squad, because all these different formations and tactics and everything else that just went on last season, like, it's just ridiculous. So someone like Ndoye, though, I mean, he flattered to see, didn't he? That he scored on his debut, didn't he? And then it was like, okay, here we go. And then after that, it was, oh, why have we signed this guy? Like you say, for Switzerland, he's been all right. He's been okay. He's another one that I think I'd like to see more of. Like, I think we probably will. But Jesus as well did well in Europe. Chris Wood's back now, so again, how much part to play? Probably big role playing off Woods. Did that kind of work at the end of last season? Well, the jury's still out on that one. But yeah, I think with Amari, I mean, I'm a massive fan of Amari, so I'm really looking forward to watching him next season and seeing those partnerships, those kind of little, just that development up front, making the right decision. Final. Yeah, that kind of Bakwa.
Said it all.
Out, and everyone was just going, oh, around.
Do you watch the silly question? But do you watch the away games, Holly?
I do, yeah. I try. I don't get to as many nowadays as I want to, but as a game of my way, I remember in the four games like.
I know what you mean.
But I do try and watch as many games as possible. And I don't think we missed him. But do you know what? He came good at the end of last season. There was glimmers, wasn't there? Where you thought there's a player in there. I don't think he was really good. And I think because he started so badly, he just never got the fan base on side, did he? And I think one of those things where, we really do, I think our players really do feel a sense of, they just vibe off the crowd, don't they? More than, I'm going to say that, I'm a Forest fan, but I do. I think when City Ground is cauldron, we get behind our boy, I just think that is that extra thing. We just didn't give him that, did we?
No, I think
trying to give that back to him, did we?
No, there was a game, I forget exactly what it was, at the end of last season where he started on the right, whoever we played after Chelsea, I presume, and he started quite well, and they doubled up on him, so he was just turning inside and knocking it inside, and I was in A block, and they doubled up on him, and you got people shouting, skin them both, don't turn back. I'm thinking, any manager worth their salt's going to have a right go if you start taking on both of those players that are already set to mark you. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't know if he'll be the answer. I just think he looks a heck of a talent, and he's quick, and he's big and strong, and if he adjusts to, I think a lot of the problems some of them have had is on top of the problems we gave them with, I love your phrase there, the clown thing, I think they just struggle to adjust to English football. And other teams, and I said it earlier, and I get what Des is saying, we need them to drop in and be brilliant. But everybody, let's do a positive. Look how Sangare's come good compared to what he was. For nearly 2 whole seasons, we spent 30 million on a guy that did nothing for nearly 2 seasons. And right at the end of his second season, he gave us a glimpse for half a game against Chelsea. And we're like, whoa, this lad can play. So they're all young as well. People are forgetting how young they are. No, I'm saying he's good on the ball. They're all young as well. This is the thing. They're 20, 21 years old, most of them, when they came over to a new country in most cases, new league. And we expect them to drop in like that. And I just don't think it's doable. Callum Wendo, I look at him, and from a scouting point of view, I don't see what he brings that could do what needs to be done in the Premier League. I'm not saying he's not a good goal scorer in another country or whatever, but you've got to have something. Like, Jesus might not have scored loads of goals in the Premier League, but he looked comfortable physically when he wasn't diving. Do you know what I mean? He gave centre-halves a hard time. He's got a lovely control and awareness and whatnot. And if he when he's not diving, he's very, very physical. But with Callum Wendo, he doesn't run in behind. He doesn't hold the ball up. I couldn't see what he gave. Even in Europe, he looked like that at times. And then he's gone over to Germany and scored, I think I looked up 5 or 6 goals. And not to be too disrespectful to Bundesliga, you take out 2 or 3 teams and it's not all that. I love Harry Kane doing what he's doing for England. But he scored 50 goals in the league and he's not Messi, is he? So he's the one I've probably written off. Nobody's mentioned Savona, who looks like we might be selling him for the same money we got him for, which is an interesting one.
I think if we can get the money back on some of these players, I think you take the hit. But contrary to everything I said about who I think's good enough, I think what you saw with Vitor Pereira is he got more out of them than the previous managers. So if we see that kind of progression at the start of the season, before the end of the window or whenever, they might be worth keeping. Prove me wrong. I'll be happy to eat a plate of humble word, humble pie. I think what we're underestimating a little bit at the end of the season was what the manager came in and did. He put the ball back in their court from the arrogance of what was before in different styles. Pereira came in, he put his arm around these guys, and he got so much more out of them than the previous 3 managers. And I think that was so important, and I think that's crucial if we are going to keep some of these players, that he gets to work with them for a prolonged period and hopefully to prove us all wrong, to ram it all back down our throats and say, you were talking too soon again. Because if he does get the same level of progress, they will be hell of a player come sort of 2-3 seasons in.
What do you reckon to Savona, Holly? What's your view on should we sell if we get the money back? Because getting the money back's okay, Des. Sorry, this is for Holly, really. But then you've got to reinvest it again and the process starts again. And we're not going to go out and buy too many ready-made players. Hutchinson was close to ready-made because he had a year of performing well in the Premier League, mostly as a number 10 at Ipswich, but he was obviously a winger. But if we sell Savona, get 12 million, we're out there looking for another fullback again. So what do you think, Ollie, in terms of Savona?
I don't think we saw enough of it, really. Again, I think there's potential there, but I'm more inclined to say sell, get someone. But that's the thing, it's so important. I mean, we say this every year, like the recruitment is absolutely vital, but I do really think we can push on if we get spot on this season. And it's that fine line between developing what we've got and then rolling the dice again, isn't it? So I think we've struggled with that a little bit. But for me, I'm kind of tending to the side of rolling the dice, selling it, seeing what we can get better from it. I think what would you say? Like what 1 in 10 players that we've recruited have done well for us. I would think it's a bit more than that.
Yeah, I think it's probably more like 40%. Because you look at players like Mangala, even what was that centre back who wasn't very good? Niakate. He did a job for a while, and we managed to get a profit on him, didn't we? So I suppose if we made a profit on them, we'd have to say they've done okay. But it seems to me, if you can play 10 games in the Premier League without looking too useless, you can make a profit. If they've come from somewhere else, you know. Mangala, I liked Mangala. He was a good player, but he had his limitations, and we did the same. The one with the one, and I know this isn't the conversation, the one ball I feel we dropped, and Des knows what I'm going to say now because I said this and I didn't want to sell him. I said this is a huge mistake. He needs a pre-season to get his physical confidence back. Danilo. I said, and you can back me on this, Des, I've said for not long after he signed, there's a superstar in that kid. And now he's sitting in Brazil. And it's not me trying to say I told you so. So I'm gutted because the answer would be there for replacing Anderson now, wouldn't it? But ironically, when he broke his leg, I believe Anderson was playing wide for us. So in a way, it opened up the door for Anderson. So that's football, isn't it? Next man up and all that to...
But it was consistency with Danilo, wasn't it?
He's a young kid,
and
though,
again,
Des.
yeah, I get it. But again, the owner, he wants it now. Do you know, he wants success and he spends the money because he wants it now. Look, I'd love to keep Danilo because at times I thought him and Morgan Gibbs-White was unplayable. But what they were looking at is that the timing were there and it just wasn't enough. So what they did look at in the end, and I think this goes back to the point you made about whether we should just take the money back or not, they thought we can get that money back, we're not going to lose. And that doesn't happen often with transfers. You know, if they don't work, if they don't hit the ground running, you don't often just get your money back. Like Holly said with Savona, you probably just say, look, he did okay at times. You know, I don't know if I would sell him, actually. I didn't mention him. But if someone's going to give you the money back and you're not convinced, and I think that's where they were with Danilo, wasn't it? He was brilliant at times. I remember that Brighton goal where the back heel and the flick over the keeper, you know, absolutely brilliant. But it wasn't enough. And again, when with the way the club is and the way the owner is, and that is the biggest factor in everything we discuss as Forest fans these days, is the owner's intention. With the way they are, they want to move forward quickly. And we can speculate and say whether we should keep this player or should keep that. I love Danilo. I'd love seeing him come on last week in the World Cup. I'd love him back at Forest. But it's that thing where they're looking to move forward quite quickly. So if these players don't do it again, it's that thing. Back in the day, a player would have to have 3 seasons. He'd have to score 30 goals a year to get his £2 million move. Yeah. You know, he'd have to do it. Now, you can score 10 goals before March, and all of a sudden you're worth 100 million quid. You know, and it's ridiculous. But that's the nature of football. And again, because it's instant results everybody's looking for. It's the nature of football these days. And if these players aren't doing it, they'll move them on.
Yeah,
and they'll go on to
I agree wholeheartedly in terms of my question, because this season they've got to do it. But I think you're being brutally unfair on Danilo because he was first pick, broke his leg, and he'd already done enough to be first pick at that point at the start of the season. Broke his leg horribly, worked his way back, first game back, incredible half an hour at the start against when we beat Brighton 7-0. But of course, after an injury like that, it's going to take time to get back into it. I said it after Chelsea about Chris Wood. I said, we're not going to see a great deal from Chris Wood until next season. He'll play, but he won't be the player that we know he can be. And that was the case, wasn't it? Aside from that goal at Sunderland, he looked like a guy trying to get back to fitness like when we signed him. And we know what he's going to be with a pre-season under his belt. And Danilo was the same, and he lost his confidence in a tackle. We get that back, don't you? That's not gone forever. Anyone who's played football and had a bad injury knows he perhaps came back into the team and he did that Brighton thing, which was a strange game anyway. And people expected that every week. But a pre-season under his belt, getting his confidence back, he was always going to be an elite. You talk about elite players, and these guys haven't shown they're elite players. Danilo has now shown he's an elite player. And he's a youngster as well. You've got to take age into account. If we sign Curtis Jones, he has to hit the ground running. He's 26 next season. Yeah, that's an example. We can't have him settling in for a year and what have you, and getting used to the 10 new managers or whatever it was next season. But yeah, sorry, I'm going on. I'm defending Danilo.
I'd have Danilo back, but this is why I hate the transfer window, because there's so many hearsays, this, that, and the other, and I absolutely hate it. Unless things are signed on the dotted line, it's like I don't want to bloom it.
Yeah, I'm the same. But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And a ready-made replacement, someone in there with slightly different, same but different, as Mr. Miyagi would say. So,
but
anyway,
I did, before we go, because we are reaching the end of the pod, I did just want to quickly go back to Holly, because I know you got cut off at the beginning. So I just wanted to pick up about the women's team, Holly. I can't remember where you left off.
Yeah, I mean, the main point that I just wanted to talk about was the new appointment of Tom Mollison as the new head coach. Obviously, Carly got sacked last month, and it's split fans a lot. To be honest, the general feeling was surprise in that we didn't sign, a kind of named manager, somebody that had experience, firstly managing women in the WSL2 or higher, and that we ended up going for a guy who obviously has great pedigree within the club. He's a Forest boy through and through. He's been at the club for 20 years with the academy, with the under-18s. He's done really well there. But I kind of refused to believe that he was our first choice when Carly was sacked. Because when Carly was sacked, there was this general that was because, we had this target expansion in the women's top two extra teams are going to be one and in W2. So three teams went up essentially. So we fought pretty well, and we were going for the objective was to go for one of those spots, which we didn't achieve. But, as I say, we mid-table, I thought, we did really well for what we had in our first season in Tier 2. So she got sacked, and we all thought it was probably because we didn't achieve that target. There's a lot of discussion around bits and pieces of why she got sacked. I mean, we're not going to go into all of those now, but I think that was the general feeling, was that we couldn't achieve what was set out for her. So then we're thinking, well, okay, we've got this whole narrative of we're a massively ambitious club, we can sign the best. And then to hear that we'd signed Tom, I think, no, him, I'm sure he's an absolutely lovely guy. Apparently he's from where I'm from in Newark, so that was interesting. Nothing wrong with Newark, by the way. Big up to Newark. Back there the other week.
Newark.
Yeah, well, anagram wanker, isn't it? You knew that. But affectionately call it wanker. But so that's kind of the main topic with it at the moment. I think my feelings with it are, I was pretty disappointed to begin with. Had a lot of affection for Carly, but thought, okay, made peace with it. Let's move on. I'm going to give the guy a chance. But I think he's going to have to hit the ground running really with a lot of the fans as well. I don't know, we were just talking off air, but Mollo, you said that you knew a little bit. You probably know a lot more about him than I do, to be honest, because I don't really keep up with the academy very closely, so I don't really know a massive amount other than the stuff that we've been told on social media and stuff. But you say that sounds like it comes with pedigree.
Yeah, no, a couple of things that I would pick up on with him, and the Carly thing we probably should leave alone, because you wonder, did anyone talk to players about it? Were the players involved? That sort of thing. But we won't go down that route. We were lucky enough to interview Jason Lee, who's known him since he first started out at Forest, and he said he's a fantastic young coach, learning, etc. And he made a really good point. He gets the culture of Forest and what we need and what we want. And I would imagine when Carly took that job, her interview would have been along the lines of, yeah, give me the money to get these players and I will get you. It's a one-off opportunity to go straight through the leagues because of the restructure. And that didn't happen. So regardless what the reasons are, whether it was bad luck, didn't get the right players, whatever, it didn't happen. And it's performance driven. We're no longer a developing women's system, are we? We want to be up there with the elite. So it's brutal, and that's the way it is. And Des has talked about a number of things, and brutality is real in football, unfortunately. The other thing is, so I used to work with someone, and sometimes you grow your own excellence from within. Where do you get the chance otherwise? So it could be this time next year we're talking about going into WSL 1 because they took the gamble on this young, up-and-coming coach that's highly thought of. And that's kind of the mentality I would probably urge the regular followers of the ladies to pursue, really. Because there is that. He's obviously he's a very, very good coach. I know that much. And if you're a very, very good coach, that's a good starting point. Steve Cooper's had a pretty good career on the back of it. The management side is different, as Steve Cooper sort of fell on towards the end. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
I did see that. So I did see that Ryan Yates and Zach Abbott, they commented and they seemed to be singing his praises. So
he was involved in their age group for a number of years as they came through.
Yeah, so it's just a waiting game, really, isn't it, to see how the season pans out? And it is, again, it's that taking those risks, isn't it? And unfortunately, you don't know until it all starts to be kicked off, really.
Yeah, I mean, one of the main things that concerns me, though, is just whether his appointment under our recruitment, whether he got people signing Forest or not. And also, just going back to Carly as well, I completely get your point with the whole, being a Forest boy and knowing the club through and through and just having that identity. But I will give Carly her dues in that I do feel like she really did buy into the club. She understood the history and what it meant. And just even little stuff like, I remember we played Ipswich women away and Ange had just been appointed. I had a little chat with her at the end of the game and she asked me, we weren't even talking about the women. I think we just played Arsenal. That was the first game, wasn't it? And she was asking me how we did, whether I watched it. She really cared and really wanted to. She actually said, "Oh, I haven't had a chance to watch it back, but I will." So I get the sense that she did really, invest in the men as much as the women. She had that whole one club mentality, which I felt was really important, and just loved football. So, but yeah, I mean, I do get your point, and look, I'm going with an open mind. Although he's not necessarily would have been my choice, he's what we've got, and I want the women's team to be successful, and I want us to be, in the top division and being in contention to sign people like Mary Earps, who's onto the. I'd love for her.
It's got to happen, hasn't it? In the next
it's not going to happen for at least a couple of years. I can't remember how long a contract that she signed at London City, but I'd love for her to finish her career at Forest. That would be whether that's going to happen today. But yeah, it's exciting. You got to have a positive mindset, haven't you? I think.
Yeah.
Any of these, talking about Steve Cooper, when he was appointed, I wasn't happy. I don't think
exactly.
Yeah.
You've got to look what he did. I absolutely adore that man. He's as we all know. So yeah, you've got to give people a chance at the end of it.
And as they say, hindsight is a very wonderful thing, isn't it? But right, so we are reaching the end of the podcast. I won't be able to do my topic just because we were too engrossed on all the other ones. I can save that for another pod. But Holly, have you got anything planned before the season starts with the podcast or anything?
Yeah, we're hoping to get some pre-season player interviews. Soon. Not exactly sure who with yet, but we've been promised that we can get some interviews before the season starts, which is really exciting. Probably a bit of a relaunch as well for the new season. So watch out for that. And yeah, just jump on and even go back into some of our old episodes. If you really want to know about the women's team and how we progressed over the last couple of seasons, then Forest Women Fancast on Spotify and all of the usual podcast places, wherever you get and all that, subscribe and all that. I was thinking, I don't think we've got anything to subscribe to because we have a YouTube channel. We don't mainly do audio, so but just Spotify. Most people.
Amazing. So everyone go and give that a listen. And Des, have you got anything that you're up to over the summer?
No, just watching the World Cup. I'm currently toying with an idea about doing something myself. But
I got to stop you there, Des. You're not just watching the World Cup, you're winning the World Cup with your insane challenge. You've got to talk about that.
Yeah, so I'm running the World Cup. I'm winning 1K for every goal scored in the World Cup. So if there's 19 goals overnight, I have to go out and run 19K. And thankfully, after 4 days of 14 plus, I've had one goal, 1K to run today. So
wow.
I'm doing that for a local charity called Footprints. It's killing me, but it's what I do. You know, I won't. Whilst I say it's what I do, I'm a little bit overweight. I like a beer, so I'm not an athlete. So it is still hard, but I enjoy it. Other than that, you know, watching the World Cup, it is great. Whatever anyone says, it's hard to watch because of the times it's on. But when you do watch a game, it's fast paced and there's lots of goals as I can vouch for. You know, so it is decent. And other than that, I'm just looking at 1 or 2 ideas around potentially extending on what I do on Twitter. You know, I ramble away, and I know it's not perfect and it's not articulate, but some people like it, some hate it, and I'm just looking maybe to extend on that in the new season. So keep an eye out.
Amazing. There's good stuff. Keep running keep running for me because I can't be bothered, to be fair. So I think it's brilliant that you still keep doing it. Right, so everyone, don't forget to see what our wonderful guests are up to on their socials, and we'll leave links in the description so you can give them a follow and see what they are all up to. Well, thanks everybody. I really enjoyed that. Great pod. Thank you for all being easy on me and sharing this wonderful new experience with me. And thank you to all of our listeners, and don't forget to give us a like and follow our socials, and we will see you soon for another pod. Bye.